Hi, Tara here from Super Hairpieces, and today we are talking to Riley about hair systems and trans people. So, welcome, Riley, and thank you for being here today. Tell us a little bit about you.
So I am 31, going to be 32 by the middle of December. I've been on testosterone because I know that this is what the podcast is like mainly about, what we're talking about today.
Hmm.
I've been on testosterone for, it was actually 10 years on Sunday, which is bizarre. But, just Florida, born and raised. So I live in South Florida, been here my entire life. Don't have any means of leaving Florida. Probably going to move North Florida with my fiance eventually, but we are here in South Florida, working as much as I can, and then when it came to like hair systems, which is definitely the biggest thing for me, it has not sincerely, it's has seriously, excuse me, like improved my confidence in myself because there are a lot of other trans individuals or trans guys that unfortunately do lose their hair and they have no way of trying to fix it, or they just shave it bald and that's it. That's the look they're going for. At least for me, it's like, well, I'm still decently young. I kind of wanted my hair. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Did you have signs of hair loss when you started transitioning?
When I just started, like pre-T and then going into my transition, I did have hair. I had, my hairline didn't recede or anything like that. I've always had thin hair, but it was never what it is now. I think I started noticing my hair loss when I was like maybe 23, 24 is when it started going the way that it was going. And I take my dad's hairline because his is receding as well, or has been receding. But I think it was, just being on a new hormone and then trying to figure out like a dosage wise, because dosage when it comes to that can vary certain effects on your body. And I was on one of the highest doses that they offered. And I think that's when I really started to see my hair lose itself. So with me, it's definitely something like if you're young or you're just starting T, like I want to give you like the best tips possible. Like, so, maybe if you do eventually see your hair losing, then you can take action to get it. Or if you're at the stage where I am at and you're like, well, I need something to help me out, then you could definitely look into doing a hair system such as myself.
So, you mentioned that you started when you were around 23. How long did it take you from the time that you started noticing the hair loss to the point where it was very significant?
I think, well, when I turned 23, that's when I started to see it. I think it maybe took like 6 months to a
Okay.
year to really starting to see, because I was just like I had no idea what to do. I was on what's it called? Finasteride, I think that's what it's called. It's kind of like it's the hormone that like biological males are on to help stop the process or like slow down the process of hair loss. That didn't do anything for me. I was on it for the recommended time and it didn't do anything. So I was just like, whatever, I'm just going to leave it alone and just deal with the hair loss. So
So, how did you feel about that? I mean, you were losing your hair, but also at the same time, you're getting something you wanted. How was that for you?
I think, to be honest, it was hard. It was a hard transition because, yeah, I've ultimately wanted to be who I was meant to be and who I was meant to be born as. But seeing the effects of, you know, losing your hair and dealing with that, like you already have so much confidence and going in, you're doing something brand new, like this is what you want to do. And then it's like, oh, well, now you're just going to get kicked in the butt and, lose your hair essentially. So it was kind of like confidence was good at the start of it and be like I'm super happy with who I'm becoming and all that stuff. But then now it's like, oh, now you're losing your hair, so all that confidence that you just built up kind of just went on the sidelines. So that's kind of where I was in the very beginning.
So, it took you some time to get a system. So, how was that moment when you decided to finally get one?
I honestly, I feel like it took, mm, I want to say it was probably like 2 years ago, to be completely honest, when I first like discovered hair systems. Because I looked at other things. I looked at, obviously a lot of guys now are doing hair transplants and all that stuff. They're like going to across the country to do that kind of stuff. Good for them. But I think it was when I started seeing it up until I really knew what a hair system was. I was just kind of like at the point where like, you know what, it's life. You kind of got to deal with it. I had people in my like my dad, he was just like, well, you have that head shape to go bald. Why don't you just go bald? That's not the look I'm going for. I'm a skinny, slim guy, and a bald look wouldn't necessarily be the look I'm going for. So 2 years ago, looked into hair systems, looked into like the Bosley and hair, like the hair club or something like that, kind of see what they do. And then when I found, super hair pieces, I was just like, it's what you're ultimately wanting. It's real hair and it's making you feel more confident in yourself. Obviously, there's some, you know, not every like when you're putting on a hair system, like me at the very beginning, I did not want to shave my head. I'm just like, I don't want to go bald yet. I just want to deal with it. So when I did talk to you about it, Tara,
Yeah.
I was just more like, let me just try it out. Let me see what systems I can do. Like, let me try with maybe like daily tape that wouldn't really necessarily hurt my hair, just kind of see what it's like. And then I think maybe like 6 months ago, that's when I was like, you know what? Just shave your head, just do it. You can keep the sides and the back of your hair as long as you want, and then just go for it. Honestly, that's what I've been doing. I've watched a lot of videos about it. I've watched Rick do it, and they followed tips and tricks that he does. And I'm like, where I'm at now with it is far better than what I could have expected.
You mentioned that your dad has some hair loss. Is it only your dad, or does it run in the family? Is there any women in the family that have issues with hair loss?
So honestly, it's just my dad. Because I have a younger sister. Obviously, she's fine, and then I have an older brother. My older brother is 37, so we are different in age. We're like 6 years apart, but he's fine. He's got full head of hair. He likes to keep it buzzed, but he doesn't have that hairline that my dad has. I think it was the case that it's like he might eventually get to that point, but I think it was the effects of testosterone and being on such a high dose. It's just like, oh, we're gonna kick your sort of side effects into overdrive. So I think that it kind of took over his genes, and that's what it is when someone is starting T. You're just like, well, look in your family, see what sort of genetics they have. If you have a father or uncle, whatever, and they have a full head of hair, your chances of hair loss are very, very slim. It can happen, but it's very slim. So with me, I think my dad started losing his hair when he was probably around the same age, to like 22, 23 is when he started losing his hair. So then having that genetics, that's just when I started losing mine as well.
From what I understand, when the individual is female and they are prone to baldness and they start with testosterone, the genetics start changing to male pattern baldness. And for everyone would be different. How was it for you?
Yeah, yeah. Usually, like so I'm on like Facebook groups and everything like that. It's all trans support. It's trans guys and trans females. Usually, most of the main topics are on there is, oh, well, I'm starting T. What are some side effects that maybe you've experienced? Me personally, I've gone on that Facebook chat and it was just like, hey, this is what I've experienced being 10 years on this hormone, and you're just starting. Like, if I would have known 10 years ago that, like, hey, Riley, you're gonna lose your hair, you're gonna have a hair loss, whatever, maybe I would be like, let me do more research about it and let me talk to the doctor about it. Because mind you, 10 years ago versus now, being trans wasn't as big as it is today. Like, you go to pride parades and all that stuff, and trans is, everybody knows about trans, everybody knows about, famous trans individuals, that they know who they are. With me, it's like the only person that I knew of back in the day was Chaz Bono. That was it. And I'm like, if I would have known now, what the kids know now, I probably would have had a different aspect. I probably wouldn't have. I would have continued my transition. I would have just been like, what, this is what you want. But I would have talked to the doctor and be like, hey, well, my dad has hair loss. He's got a receding hairline. Can I start on a lower dose, and maybe I won't, maybe it wouldn't affect me as much. But you live and you learn. You can't really do anything about it. I'm not reversing, I'm not transitioning or anything like that. I love my life, I love what I do. So I just think with that, it just look into it, look into your genetics, and if there's something that you want to do and you don't mind having your hair loss, then fine. If worry about it, that's when you can take that next step and look into a hair system, so you still have your hair. It's just somebody else's hair. It's just a different way. You can go as long as you want. Like I've grew my hair from the very beginning of having my consultation for a year, almost 2 years ago. I grew out my hair, like, and the hair piece that I have right now is a full lace system, and it's long, and I like it, and gives me the look that I want. So it's kind of cool that you can change it up. You're not like, oh well, if I get a haircut, kind of can't grow the hair back. Well, no, you can get as long as you want. So I think that's pretty cool.
So you mentioned that it could be good for people to go and get transplants. You yourself tried finasteride. Have you tried any natural remedies or anything else?
Yeah, the other thing, so you can take minoxidil. Minoxidil is like Rogaine. Rogaine, it's basically the same thing. You can do that if you have like if you do it early. If you're on Rogaine or on minoxidil and you're like, oh, I'm just starting to experience some hair loss, you can go on that and finasteride, because finasteride basically will like it'll stop the process of your hair losing, but then minoxidil will grow back, sort of like the hair follicles, but it's not like 100% guaranteed. It depends on your genetics and if you can grow that back. Unfortunately, in my case, it didn't work. I tried it on the top of my head. It didn't do anything. It works for my beard and my mustache, but it doesn't work for the top of my head. So
So why not consider a transplant?
I think it's overall, like, I have juggled back and forth with it. I did talk to my fiance about it as well. I think if it's more feasible, it's not a inexpensive thing to do. Not a lot of people like it's more of an out of country thing. A lot of guys that I follow on Instagram or anything like that, they're going to Turkey to do it. But the most people kind of see that misconception of like, oh, well, I'm gonna get a hair transplant, I'm gonna pay all this money, and then I'm be good to go. That's not the case. It's more of like you're paying upware of 12,000 US dollars and above, but then you have to go back like 6 months to a year to see what the progress is like. And if the doctor's like, no, like you need a little bit more treatment, that's another $12,000 out of your pocket. And in the United States, we go with health insurance. Health insurance doesn't cover anything cosmetic. If it's a medical need, absolutely, but having a cosmetic thing, it's not, insurance isn't going to cover it. So for me, if it was a case where I'm like, I can afford to do this, then yeah, absolutely. But for me, it's not a feasible thing, and it's not a feasible thing for a lot of other, trans individuals, because at the end of the day, their biggest thing is, do they want to do where they can get a hair transplant, or do they want to medically they want to how do I word it? Do they want a surgery that ultimately makes them feel better about themselves? Like for me personally, if someone's like, Riley, you can either have top surgery or you can have a hair transplant, what would you do? I chose top surgery. I got top surgery in the beginning of this year, and I feel 100% better about myself that I went that route rather than the hair route. You know what I mean?
So, how does it feel to have hair again?
I honestly, I feel so much confidence in myself. I'm in like, my industry is real estate, so I work with like apartment complexes and all that stuff. So going into it, when people are coming in and they're like, "Oh, you're so young," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm 31." They're like, "You're 31? I thought you were like 24. You have like a full head of hair." It makes me have that sense of confidence in myself, because granted, like, your image when it comes to real estate or anything like that is the biggest thing. And prior to finding the hair systems, I'm just like, I don't feel confident about myself. Like, I'm so young. Why is my hair receding? But now, like, I wake up, I get to do my hair, I get to shampoo my hair. Granted, it's not my physical hair, but it is hair, and I get to style it the way that I want. It looks good. I always get compliments about it. So I think this was the right move for myself personally, and it's just boosted my confidence like no tomorrow. Like no tomorrow.
So, have you had to deal with any issues regarding hair systems?
Um, n- Not personally. I think it's just more of like the maintenance aspect of it, because I think obviously I'm 100% good with it. I maintain it as much as I can. I can have mine last up to like a month, but I think there in the maybe in the very beginning of starting the hair systems, I was just kind of like, I don't want to mess this up, or like I put it on wrong, or I'm not maintaining it the proper way, where I watch all the other YouTube videos about it and they're like, well, theirs looks fantastic, why isn't mine look like that? I think in the very beginning, I'm like, that's kind of what you need to understand. What people need to understand is they're different systems. But I think in the very beginning, that's kind of where I was like, well, is this the right thing to do? And I did contemplate. I'm like, do I want to continue doing this? But now looking back, I'm like, no, this is ultimately what I want to do. I don't mind doing the maintenance. I don't mind having to keep up with it. It makes me feel better about myself, regardless of the maintenance and all that stuff. So
So you probably can say that there's been a learning curve?
yeah, 100%. I think it is a big learning curve, but if you're watching like if you watch YouTube videos or you watch people or you ask for tips or anything like that, or you watch like the TikToks and Instagram tips and tricks, it's going to help you further, you know, make your hair system last longer and hopefully give you a better aspect of what a hair system is and how to maintain it and how to get like the longevity of the system itself.
So you started with a lace system.
I still have my lace. I still have it.
So why not try something different? Like, why have you decided to stick with lace?
I think it's living in Florida. Florida is a very, very hot and humid state. Not a lot of people understand because our humidity is different than like California's humidity and Arizona's humidity. It's here. I'm constantly moving and I'm constantly walking a property in the heat. I think lace for me is more breathable. It's easier for me. I can definitely feel like when my hair is blowing, I can feel it kind of breathing through my actual scalp, and that feels good because it's like, okay, well, my hair is or my scalp is breathing and all that stuff. So that's probably why I've stuck with lace itself. So
So, last question. Would you recommend trans people or anyone dealing with hair baldness to get a hair system? And if so, why?
I would 100% recommend it because if I'm at the age that I'm at right now, and let's say you're younger than I am and you're looking into a hair system and you want to have that confidence back, I say go for it, give it a try. If you're not as like open about it how I was in the very beginning, you're like, well, I don't really want to shave the top of my head. I like it. Okay, there are alternatives to doing that. You can put on a daily tape and just test it out. You don't have to glue it or anything like that. It's best to glue like the front hairline, yeah. But like if you don't want to shave the whole top of your head, do some tape, try it out. If you're like, well, I feel fantastic about myself, then you know that you should go about it. And I think it's not only good for other trans folks that are dealing with the same, side effects that I was. It's good for either like biological males that are going through male pattern baldness. It gives you a sense of confidence because what happens if it's a case where like the biggest thing is dating life, right? Whether you're, a gay man or a straight man or anything like that, your hair, some other people, your partner in life may not care, but it's the confidence in yourself. If you're dating somebody or you're going out in the world and you're dating and you're like, I don't have hair, and that's the biggest thing for yourself, look into a hair system. It does make you feel a lot better about yourself. And that's ultimately how I felt. Granted, I've been with my fiance for 8 years. She didn't care. She's like, if this is what you want to do, this is what you want to do. But starting to wear a hair system from where I was previously, she's like, I've seen your confidence boost so much in the last 2 years of you doing this. Why didn't you start it before? You know what I mean? So I feel like if you're on the bridge of doing it, I think just do it. Take that leap of faith, just try it out. If it's not for you, then it's not for you. But if you're like, hey, I'm going to take this word of advice from Riley and try to do it, and you feel better about yourself, I'll take all that credit. I'll take the brownie points for you feeling confidence in yourself. But I think I would say for everybody that wants to do it, just do it. Bite the bullet, do it. You're going to feel better about yourself, to be honest.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for everything today. It was great talking to you, Riley.
Thank you, of course.
Thank you so much for sharing, and we'll talk soon.